Up next, a young aspiring singer disappears.
A telltale sign of, someone who is running away from something.
She had a history of running away. She's always come back.
Surveillance cameras tell at least part of the story.
When I saw the video, I started feeling very confident that we were focusing on the right guy.
All they had to do now was to find him.
I wanna love someone that will stand by my side. I wanna
16-year-old Joshan Ashbrook had dreams of stardom.
Her sister and Joshan used to write songs all the time, different little lyrics and things, and they wrote one song called Wanna.
I wanna love you, but could you love me too? I feel so safe when I'm with you. I wanna love you.
And Joshan sang this song, and they really wanted to get it recorded and to do something nice with it, and she just didn't get the chance to finish that.
And if a singing career didn't work out, she had a backup plan.
Joshan wanted to be an entertainment lawyer. She could make deals and make everybody happy.
Like many teenagers, Joshan had her share of conflicts with her parents, but they were usually resolved.
Joshan did have a history of running away. Normally, she would run away, spend the night somewhere else, and come home the following day, or maybe 2 days later.
But after an argument with her parents about smoking marijuana, she left, this time for good.
Joshan's parents were very concerned about her. They were aware that she had substance abuse problems.
Her parents notified the police, called all her friends, and went to all of her known hangouts.
Towards the end of the evening, it was more frustrating because it was like we had no other leads. We had nowhere else to go. We couldn't think of any other places or any other people to talk to.
The next morning, electricians working for the power company spotted a woman's body off the side of the road outside of Tampa, Florida. The body was identified as Joshan Ashbrook.
You could see that her throat was cut, blunt trauma to her face, her head. There was cuts, defensive wounds on her hands.
Joshan's pants weren't found at the scene.
Looking at her body being nude from the waist down, you cannot help think that maybe she was sexually assaulted.
Gosh, I don't know how to describe that feeling. I'm never gonna see my daughter get married or have babies. I'm never gonna hold her first child. And I'm never gonna see her make her dreams come true.
Investigators found a single hair in a defensive wound on Joshan's thumb.
It appeared that this might be the hair from her attacker, like if she went to grab him, and when she was fighting him, and she grabbed him, and it just got embedded in there.
The hair had the root intact. About 30 feet from the body were fresh tire tracks.
It was obvious that whoever was driving that vehicle backed into the area and then dragged her body into the woods.
The tire tracks were in the sand, a surface ideal for making plaster casts.
These were so clear, I could say that there was not any rain or had occurred or any damage in the environment at that time because they were such nice, clear quality impressions.
No one knew of anyone who wanted to harm Joshan. But for investigators, these clues were a very good start. As police searched for Joshan Ashbrook's killer, the medical examiner learned that the knife wound to her throat was not the cause of death.
The medical examiner explained that the suspect may have put her in some type of wrestling move, like a half Nelson, and turned or put extreme pressure on her, which broke her neck.
An autopsy found no evidence of sexual assault. In a search for suspects, Joshan's family suggested police interview John Hansen, a 60-year-old family friend who lived nearby.
John was an older gentleman. He hung out at the house all the time with us, but in my opinion, he seemed after a while to get too close to the children. He always wanted to be their friend, more so than the friends of an adult.
Within 24 hours of finding Joshan's body, investigators went to Hansen's trailer to question him, but he was gone.
We've talked to the park manager and some of the neighbors, and they said they hadn't seen him in a day or two.
There was no sign of violence in his trailer. A background check revealed Hansen, a day laborer estranged from his wife, had no history of violence.
A 60-year-old man having teenagers visit the house and hang around, I think it does lead to suspicion as to what is going on.
So now he is somebody we really want to talk to.
While police searched for Hansen, criminalists measured the tire impressions found near Joshan's body. Those measurements and tread patterns were entered into a computer database of 20,000 different tires manufactured around the world.
There was then 7 different manufacturer models that could have made that tire impression at the crime scene. Different manufacturers sometimes sell their mold to other manufacturers, so therefore you would have the same mold, but yet under different manufacturer and model names.
All 7 of these tire models were for larger vehicles, which meant Joshan's killer was driving either a truck or an SUV. Then police got an important lead from a woman who saw Joshan the day she ran away.
Hi, it's Joshan.
She received a phone call from Joshan about 8:30 in the morning on July 31st. She wanted to know if her son was there and could she stop by.
Sure, you can stop by.
Joshan's asked if she could come by and drop off a letter.
Within minutes, a red Ford pickup pull-up. Joshan gets out, runs to the door.
The note was for the woman's son, Max, who was Joshan's boyfriend.
It was, "Hi, I miss you, I love you, I'll call you later," that type of note.
She just appeared to be in a hurry and wanted to leave.
The woman said the driver was a middle-aged white male, but she didn't get a good look at his face. She did, however, provide a valuable piece of information.
Max's mother provided us with the cell phone number that was on her caller ID.
When investigators called the number, a man answered the phone.
We were able to get a person on the phone. His name was Philip Thompson, and he was asked if he knew anybody of the name of Joshan Ashbrook, and if he had picked up anybody or knew this female.
Philip Thompson confirmed he and his daughter had picked up Joshan when she was hitchhiking.
Hey, can I borrow your phone real quick?
Took her to her boyfriend's house to leave the note,
Snacks for me? Sure.
and then they dropped her off at the local Walmart.
And that's the last that he had seen of her.
Philip Thompson agreed to meet police later that day, but he failed to show up for his appointment.
Investigators looked at that as possibly, a telltale sign of, someone who was running away from something.
But police received some troubling news. The cell phone wasn't registered to Philip Thompson. It was registered to Philip Parton, a convicted killer.
Philip Parton was convicted of a murder that he committed in 1987, in which he strangled a man with a phone cord or some kind of cord.
Short version was that Philip Parton was what they call a hustler, a male prostitute. He had picked up this gay math teacher at a local club. They went back to the teacher's place. Something happened there. Parton beat him, strangled him to death with a telephone cord. Once he killed him, he took his wallet, money, credit cards, got into the guy's car, and drove off.
Parton was convicted of second-degree murder, served 6 years in prison, and was released in 1995. Police believed that it was Parton they'd been speaking to about Joshan. Parton said he and his daughter dropped Joshan off at this Walmart the morning she disappeared. But that's not what store surveillance tape showed.
The Walmart surveillance video shows them pulling in at around 8:48. You see the suspect, you see Joshan, and you see the suspect's little girl. They spend 5-10 minutes, purchase a couple fishing items, and then they leave, get back in the vehicle, and drive off.
The videotape left no doubt Joshan was with Parton, a convicted murderer, just hours before her body was found.
When I saw the video, I started feeling very confident that we were focusing on the right guy.
There was only one problem. Where was he? Police searched nationwide for Philip Parton, a convicted killer who had already admitted to police during a phone call that he'd picked up Joshan Ashbrook while she was hitchhiking. Investigators learned that Parton and his daughter were living in Newport Richey, Florida, with a friend he'd met in prison.
He agreed to let him live in one of the rooms at his house. Parton had his daughter Patricia with him, so they moved in there.
When questioned, Parton's roommate said he hadn't seen Parton or his daughter since Joshan's murder was covered in the local news. He also said he'd never seen Joshan Ashbrook at his house either. With a search warrant, police examined the room Parton and his daughter had been using and initially found nothing suspicious.
We lifted up a throw rug that was in between the two beds. And when we pulled the throw rug back, there was a huge discolored stain.
The stain was about 4 feet long and smelled of bleach. It looked like someone had recently tried to clean it, so criminalists lifted the carpet and found traces of blood underneath, which they collected for DNA testing. Forensic analysts also went over every inch of the room.
They started searching, and on the wall, they found a speck of blood that looked like it might have been a cast-off, a little teardrop.
The blood on the wall and underneath the carpet yielded a genetic profile, and it matched Joshan's DNA.
We can say that Joshan was killed in that bedroom.
Parton's roommate insisted he had nothing to do with Joshan's murder, but wouldn't cooperate further.
I did not want to cooperate with the investigators, nor the state attorney's office. Very belligerent, just hated authority, despised us.
Meanwhile, the search for Philip Parton wasn't going well, even though he was in constant contact with police via his cell phone.
Detective. Philip liked to talk. He would question detectives as to, what do you have on me? Why do you think I'm the one that did this? He was seeking answers.
You have nothing on me.
The problem was, Parton would make a call and then drive away, so it was impossible to pin down his location. One call came from across the country in Washington State.
This was just another way of Mr. Parton taunting the detectives.
Finally, the phone call stopped completely. But then, 2 months after Joshan's murder, police found an abandoned red pickup truck in a Walmart parking lot 50 miles away from where Joshan's body was discovered. The license plate showed it was Parton's truck. But on the truck were 4 bald tires. That didn't match the tire impressions at the crime scene. Was Parton trying to show he wasn't the killer by using decoy tires?
I mean, he's got to know we're going to take tire casts and we're going to know what kind of vehicle he was driving. It's pretty smart.
But if that were the case, Parton made a colossal mistake. In the glove compartment, investigators found 3 rolls of film. When developed, one picture showed his truck with different tires. One of them was a Wild Country brand tire.
I was able to determine that the tire impressions made at the crime scene was made by one of 7, and one of them being the Cooper Wild Country tire.
This became a crucial piece of evidence for us in this case.
With the help of an informant, police found Parton's 7-year-old daughter. Parton had dropped her off at a friend's home after the murder and never came back.
Parton tells her, you don't know where I'm at, you don't know where I'm going, and don't tell anybody, take care of my child, I'll get back with you later on. He's never seen again.
Parton's daughter confirmed Joshan's whereabouts on the night of the murder and said Joshan never left the bedroom.
She remembered that they went back to the house where they lived, went into the bedroom, and that she and Joshan played video games and watched TV.
Parton's daughter said she was asleep in the living room, while her father and Joshan were in the bedroom. When she awoke, Joshan was gone.
We asked her what time did Joshan leave, and she didn't remember, probably after she went to bed. She had no knowledge of when they left.
And she couldn't tell investigators where her father was hiding.
This guy's pissing me off.
All the evidence in the Joshan Ashbrook murder pointed to one man, Philip Parton. He was the last known person to see Joshan alive. His truck once had the same brand of tires that left tracks just feet from her body. His own daughter put him with the victim the night of the murder. And perhaps most tellingly of all, when police went to question him, he went on the run. But he couldn't control his curiosity about the case and called detectives from all over the country.
He was pumping detectives as much as we were trying to pump him for information. He ultimately thought he could beat the system. Well, in doing that, we were able to trace his phone calls.
With a warrant, investigators tapped his roommate's phone just to see if Parton would eventually call him. And that's what he did. When Parton called his roommate, the police were listening in. They traced the call to a payphone in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
We knew that Mr. Parton was involved in the air conditioning business. He had a general area where the phone call came in from. So we concentrated our search in that area.
And that's exactly where they found him.
Mr. Parton was quite shocked to see detectives. He was taken into custody on a warrant. Upon questioning by detectives, he refused most of the questions. He didn't confess.
You remember Joshan if I showed you a picture of her?
I don't know. You don't know how many girls I meet, you know, see them
Well,
one time.
I'm talking about the one, I am talking about the one that was at Fred's house. You two were together.
I'm listening to you, but I still don't know.
But DNA finally told the tale. Parton's DNA matched DNA on the hair found on Joshan's body.
This DNA just sealed the deal.
To see whether Parton's roommate was involved, investigators searched his SUV and on the front seat found a blood stain. But a test on the blood stain didn't match Joshan Ashbrook. It was DNA from the man's son. The roommate also claimed he was at work in Tampa on the night Joshan was murdered, an alibi corroborated by his employer.
He was obviously in Pinellas or Tampa with these people. He couldn't have been involved in a murder.
Prosecutors believe Parton picked up Joshan while she was hitchhiking.
Hey there.
Hi.
Parton gained Joshan's trust by having his daughter with him and by helping her with her errands. The security tapes show the three of them went shopping later that morning, bought some fishing gear, and according to Parton's daughter, went fishing later that afternoon. Parton's daughter said they returned to their rented room sometime late in the day. After dark, Parton's daughter fell asleep on the sofa. Parton may have made a sexual advance toward Joshan, which she rebuffed. There was a fight. Joshan grabbed some of his hair, and Parton used a knife to cut her throat. Blood spatter got onto the wall, but it was a broken neck that caused Joshan's death. Parton took Joshan's body to the woods 15 miles from her home. She had in her hand his DNA. Parton left his tire impression in the sand. Later, Parton attempted unsuccessfully to clean the blood from the bedroom.
Philip Parton is an opportunist who preys on young victims and vulnerable victims. I would consider him a sick individual.
It's hard for the defense to look at this evidence and take off in a different direction, saying, hey, my client's not guilty.
Philip Parton went on trial for first-degree murder. He was found guilty and sentenced to death.
I held a lot of anger in, and so that's what got me through the trial, was my anger. He would stare at me, and he would wink at me, and just be as cocky as he could be.
The forensics evidence was the case. It was the case. Her DNA in the bedroom, and his DNA, his hair found in her finger. That's the case. Everything else was circumstantial.
Mr. Parton had a tattoo on his body that said, live free or die, and that was his motto that he went by, either let me free or kill me. And ultimately, I think it speaks for itself.